Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome to technically I suppose you could call it a preview of Warhammer 40,000 Chaos Gate Demon Hunter. Developed by Complex Games and published by Frontier Foundry. It's now available to wishlist on Steam, although the release date is no more specific than at some point this year, so your guess is as good as mine. However, Chaos Gate Demon Hunters does have the opportunity of joining the incredibly short list, along with the 11-year-old now Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine and the upcoming, at some point this spring, Warhammer 40,000 Darktide, of being a Warhammer 40,000 computer game that doesn't actually suck. Because Chaos Gate Demon Hunters is a turn-based tactical role-playing game, in the vein of something like XCOM 2, and we all know I do like a bit of XCOM 2. What sets Chaos Gate Demon Hunters apart, of course, is the fact that it's Warhammer 40,000, although that intellectual property alone, as we're probably all bitterly aware by now, is no guarantee of a decent title. However, what I have seen thus far does fill me with hope. Full disclaimer before we go any further, what you are about to see is not my own gameplay. I have not actually played the game. You've probably been seeing more than a couple of Chaos Gate Demon Hunter videos popping up on YouTube since yesterday when the press embargo lifted. So any other Demon Hunters video that you may have seen, including this one, all have one thing in common. Exactly the same background footage, because none of us have actually had an opportunity to play this yet. A whole bunch of people were invited to attend a presentation and a demonstration last week, and then afterwards we were able to ask questions of the developers, and we were all provided with the material that you're going to see. So bear that in mind. However, and I'm not going to lie to you here, what we were shown was pretty impressive. So what's this all about? Well, those of you who are familiar with the lore of the Warhammer 40,000 universe will be aware that the Demon Hunters in the title of this game are the mysterious and secret chapter of the Adeptus Astartes known as the Grey Knights. The Grey Knights are a very special Space Marine chapter. They've been around for 10,000 years, since the days of the Horus Heresy. Every member of the chapter was developed from gene seed extracted from the Emperor of Man himself. Every single member of the chapter is a powerful psyker, and despite this, in the 10,000 year history of the chapter, not one has ever fallen victim to chaos corruption. Unlike the more famous Space Marine chapters, the Blood Angels, the Ultramarines, the Imperial Fists, the Space Wolves, the mere existence of the Grey Knights is a closely guarded secret. They are the secret military arm of the Imperial Inquisition. They have one job, and one job only, and that is to, with great fury and righteous conviction, smite the arses of every demon that they see. And they are very, very good at their job.
By the Emperor, a demon!
Yes, try to remain calm, brother.
Heresy grows from idleness.
I think he wants me to get on with it. Okay, I can do that. So, Chaos Gate Demon Hunters, turn-based, tactical RPG. So what does that mean? It's XCOM 2 with Space Marines. I mean, look, I'm sorry, but comparisons here are going to be inevitable. But that's not a bad thing, because XCOM 2 is fantastic, as are Space Marines, so what could possibly go wrong? Well, yeah, if you've been following the less than glorious process of previous Warhammer 40,000 PC adaptations, there's an awful lot that can go wrong. I mean, there have been some hits. Space Marine, it's 11 years old now. Dawn of War 2, it's 13 years old now. But there have been an awful lot of misses as well. Games like, for example, one notable example, 2016's Space Hulk Deathwing, which 100% nailed the atmosphere and the graphics and the sound effects. They just forgot to include any kind of working gameplay. How on earth could you manage that? I mean, this does look and sound absolutely glorious, and yes, it does. But while Space Hulk Deathwing absolutely nailed the sound effects, the graphics, the presentation, the atmosphere, all the things that are important in a Warhammer 40k game, and this, by the way, is just one example of the whole litany of dismal failures that Warhammer 40k have brought to the computer screen, you have to also include a good game. Just sticking Space Marines in it isn't enough. And Space Hulk Deathwing is by no means the only culprit when it comes to this sort of thing, but it is a particularly good example, because it's a first-person shooter. They nailed the first-person part. The shooter bit, not so much, because the weapons are absolutely terrible, and it's virtually impossible to stop enemies from closing to melee range, and the melee weapons are even worse. And you back that up with some of the dumbest team AI ever to grace a computer screen, and you end up with the utter, glorious looking and sounding disaster that was Space Hulk Deathwing. So, does Chaos Gate Demonhunters manage to avoid stepping into this extremely big trap? Honestly, I can't say, because I haven't actually played it. It isn't available for play yet. All I've seen is a demonstration. But based on what I've seen in the demonstration, all indications would point to yes. Because let's face it, we are basically playing XCOM 2 with Space Marines here. Funnily enough, there is actually an XCOM 2 mod for that, which I haven't actually played. But with Demonhunters coming out this year, I probably won't have to. I mean, let's face it, if you're taking something as solid as XCOM 2, and then you're sticking Space Marines in, with all of the lore and the detail and the atmosphere that entails, you are onto a winner. You would have to work pretty hard to screw that up. And so far at least, Demonhunters certainly seems to be ticking all the right boxes. It's a tactical turn-based role-playing game, and they have not skimped on the role-playing game features. Your base of operations is your ship, which has numerous upgrade features allowing you to, for example, travel around the sector map faster in order to get to hotspots before it's too late. It comes, of course, with the full range of armory, engineering and upgrade features, not just for the ship, but also for your squad of Grey Knights themselves. You can upgrade your Marines' armour, weapons and psychic abilities. There's obviously a rank system. Your Marines earn experience when you send them away on missions, and they can come back and earn promotions, unlocking new options. Again, so far, so XCOM 2. The fact that you can upgrade the ship's hull, armour, weapons, sensors, engines is very interesting, however, because while I wasn't shown any examples of this, the various different upgrade screens relating to your ship do indicate that there is going to be some form of ship-to-ship combat in the game. Almost certainly not as complex as in something like Battlefleet Gothic Armada 2, but the fact that it's even there in the first place is something that Demonhunters promises that XCOM 2 didn't really have. So that's all very interesting, but the meat and bones of the game, of course, is going to be the tactical turn-based combat. That's what it's going to be judged on. And that's the sort of thing that can be surprisingly difficult to get right. I mean, obviously XCOM 2 nailed it, but there are plenty of other games, some of them even set inside the Warhammer 40k universe, like Warhammer 40,000 Mechanicus, which, to be completely fair to it, wasn't a bad game. But, well, it didn't have Space Marines, and the UI wasn't really there. Often when I was playing Mechanicus, I felt more like I was fighting the UI than I was actually fighting the enemies. And while again I must stress I have not actually played Demonhunters myself, based on what I saw in the demonstration, the UI does appear to be taking a lot of keys from something like XCOM 2, where you always know what your options are based on wherever the cursor happens to be at any given time. It clearly shows you what you can and can't do if you commit to moving to and then acting on whichever tile the cursor happens to be hovering over at any given time. So if you screw it up, it's not the UI's fault, and I cannot stress how important that is in a game of this nature. Let's briefly talk about the weapons, because it's Warhammer 40k and these are Space Marines, so the full complement of ranged weapons are available, ranging from the not so humble bolt gun through the storm bolter, heavy bolter, assault cannon, melter gun, heavy flamer, you name it, they're all present and correct. But while Demonhunters certainly has ranged weapons available, they're really more just for softening the enemy up before closing to melee range and hoofing them one right in the happy sacks with the most ridiculously over-the-top selection of melee weapons. It's fair to say that the emphasis on combat in Chaos Gate Demonhunters is definitely in melee. Not that you can't use the ranged weapons, and you would be encouraged to do so whenever the opportunity arrives, but you're probably going to be getting most of your kills in melee. The guys with the bolt guns and storm bolters are mostly going to be providing covering fire for the guy with the dirty, great big murderous axe. But that's not all. And again, this is something else that I first saw successfully done in XCOM 2, and again, I'm sorry, but comparisons here are going to be inevitable, but which they're expanding on, or certainly appear to be expanding on, in Chaos Gate Demonhunters, and that's destructible scenery. So, enemy reinforcements here have just popped up. Brother, do you see that bridge they're all standing on?
What is your order?
I don't want to see that bridge anymore.
Understood. Position secure.
Oh yeah. You could do this sort of thing in XCOM 2, but there seems to be a lot more of it in Chaos Gate Demonhunters. You're probably going to find yourself learning to think about how you can use the terrain to your advantage in so many more ways than simply viewing it as something you can use to take cover from incoming fire behind. And that's great, because, I mean, just being an XCOM 2 clone with a Space Marine skin isn't a bad thing. But it is reassuring to know that the development team aren't just trying to push out an XCOM 2 clone with a Space Marine skin. I mean, I'm sure plenty of people would buy it if that's all they were doing, but that's not all they're trying to do. So, Warhammer 40,000 Chaos Gate Demonhunters, not just an XCOM 2 clone with the Space Marine skin. I'm looking forward to actually getting my hands on a playable version of this, although I suspect that probably isn't going to be happening for a couple of months at least. Although I'm pretty sure that when a playable build does become available, I'll be one of the first people to get their hands on it. And I'll be wasting absolutely no time in demonstrating my own particular brand of victory through luck rather than judgment. Anybody who's watched any of my XCOM 2 videos will know exactly what I'm talking about. So yeah, looking forward to that. Hopefully you are too. You can't actually pre-order the game now. It's not in early access, but it is available to wishlist on Steam, so if you're interested, add it to your Steam wishlist, and the second it becomes available, Steam will let you know. In the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed this preview, and as always,
Death to the foul warriors of chaos.